Hi, I am Nejat Doğan from the Department of International Relations at Anadolu University. Thanks for joining me in this video today. And the subject of this video is the theories of international relations. As usual, I will not go into detail about these issues, but I will give you the basics, and I would suggest you go and read your textbook, read the chapter very closely. Let's look at the chapter outline. What this chapter does is give you the basics, first of all, about the classical IR theories such as realism and liberalism, and then it talks about modern IR theories, and it closes with the postmodern IR theories. Then let's talk about what's Seth Theory. In fact, the theory attempts to explain international transactions. It permits the examination of what's going on, and it allows you to compare one event to another. It may explain many cases. It's used to analyze the impact of political choices, and it may serve as a paradigm. And if you look at what a theory does, and some people say it should be parsimonious, and the parsimony means, as you might remember from the first chapter, is that any example of human behavior should be explained at its simplest and most immediate level. If you look at the picture at the right side, you see a model of a house there. It doesn't give you everything about a house that you would see in your actual house, but it gives you the basics such as the roof, the windows, and the door, and it's a model. Then what that theory does is close to this model of a house, that it gives you the basics of the workings of the international relations and also of the international system. Now, there are two classical IR theories, I would say, realism and liberalism. Your book goes into detail about these theories. And let's touch on basic premises of classical realism. According to realism, the human nature is actually bad because persons are driven by competition, distrust of others, egoism, as well as glory. They interact in an anarchy. And as Hobbes and others define, this is a state of nature, in fact, that the people have some natural rights. They might even have the right to kill each other because this is an anarchy. What it means that there is no higher authority above the individuals in a domestic environment. But the social contract theory says people are not happy about this state of nature. They come together and they create the state. And from this, it follows that for states, the system is anarchical, according to realism. States like power because they have to survive in the international system. This is a self-help system. And states, in fact, follow their own national interests. And given the structure, states, they would say that there should be no universal moral principles that the states should follow in the international system. And let's look at some key figures of realism in the study of international relations. Thucydides is, the author of the history of the Peloponnesian War. And it talks about the rise of Athenian power and the war between Athens and Sparta. And the Melian dialogue is critical because it says the standard of justice depends on the equality of power, which means that you can expect justice between equal powers, but you cannot talk about justice between a great power and relatively a small one. Building on this, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Carr, and Morgenthau defines the basics of classical realism. Please go to your book and read in detail about the Machiavelli, Hobbes, Carr, and Morgenthau's works, such as The Prince Leviathan, 20 Years Crisis, and Politics Among Nations. And basic premises of classical liberalism. Then your book defines and gives you the basics, such as human nature is actually not bad, and it might be even good. State of nature is a state of freedom and rights. It's not like the realists define the state of nature. According to liberalism, state of nature, in fact, is a state of freedom and rights. And liberalism, in fact, it puts an emphasis on securing individual freedoms and talks about cooperation between actors. From this, I would say what we can say about the states is that states maybe search for long-term mutual gains. Cooperation is possible even under anarchy, and international organization and institutions matter. And from the realist point of view, international organizations and institutions do not matter. What matters is the state power and the state's national interests. Your chapter then talks about some key figures in the history of liberalism, such as Immanuel Kant, John Locke, and Adam Smith. And you see the names of their works on your video. Immanuel Kant wrote Perpetual Peace, John Locke, The Second Treatise of Government, and Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations. Now, what are the modern theories? Modern theories of international relations, I would say, is starting from the 1940s. We see the rise of some new theories built on this classical realism and classical liberalism. And the basic premises of neorealism is close to classical realism. However, here is the stress on the international system and the international structure rather than the persons or individuals' characteristics, such as the human nature is bad or human nature is not good. Neorealism stresses the importance of systemic understanding of international relations. And according to the realists, this structure is anarchical. What it means is, as I said, there is no higher authority than the state. Then the state is after its national interests. What are the some key figures in the study of international neorealist approach? First of all, Kenneth Waltz. He wrote The Theory of International Politics in 1979, and John Mearsheimer. Now, look at which year this work of Waltz published, 1979, because it was the start, maybe the Second Cold War, with the invasion of Afghanistan by Soviet Union, and also some revolutions we observe in the Middle East. So the things turned colder in late 1970s relative to early 60s and mid 60s, I would say. Let's look at neoliberalism. The basic premises of neoliberalism is given in your book, and the neoliberals, in fact, tend to look at international issues from an economic point of view. They say cooperation is possible between states, and they argue for making trade between states easier. Institutions might help in this process, they would say, and they solve the problems of cooperation, such as uncertainty and the free rider problem. And some most recent variations of the theory is neoliberal institutionalism and regime theory. And as a third modern theory, the book looks at Marxism. And you may have heard before about the basic premises of Marxism in your social studies at the high school. And Marxism talks about history, and it says the history in its entirety is one of a class struggle. What it means is that capitalism maybe creates conflict between states, between classes. And warism means that capitalism uses to promote its goals. And some key figures in the study is Karl Marx. He wrote The Critique of the Gotha Program, and Friedrich Engels. He wrote Imperialism as the highest stage of capitalism. Now, the fourth modern theory, the English school. Why is this called English school? And some people say British school, because this school was originated in originated in England and at English and British institutions. That's why we call it the English school. And the English school, in fact, it is also called International Society Theory, because it observes a society even in this anarchical world. They say we see a higher level of order and a low level of violence between states than people would think in an anarchy. This is because of balance of power, international institutions, and international norms. Some of the key figures in the study of English school are Hadley Bull. He wrote The Anarchical Society in 1977. Adam Watson, he wrote The Evolution of the International Society, 1992, and Barry Buzan, Andrew Linklater, Ole Weaver, and Martin White are other key figures of this approach. And your book also goes into detail about postmodern approaches such as critical theory, constructivism, and feminist theory, also which is called feminism. I would suggest you go and read these theories in your textbook. And this, in fact, wraps up our video today. And thank you for joining me in this video. And subject of the next video is international security. I hope you join me then. And until then, you take care. Bye.